Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, feeling the wind whip around you, heart pounding and your knees trembling. That feeling, the one where your whole being is screaming, turn back, but your soul whispers, step forward, is vulnerability. When we hear the word vulnerability, our instinct is often to recoil, to associate it with fragility, exposure, or weakness. We think of vulnerability as something to be avoided, a risk too great to take. But what if we reframed that thinking? What if, instead of viewing vulnerability as a crack in our armor, we saw it as the very source of our strength? True strength isn't about how well we can shield ourselves from the world, it's about how deeply we can show up in it. To embrace vulnerability is to dare to be seen as we are, without guarantees, without perfection, and often without a clear sense of control. This requires immense courage, the kind of courage that can only come from within. Think about it, vulnerability is present in all our most meaningful experiences. When we take a leap of faith and love, we open ourselves to the possibility of rejection. When we share an idea we care deeply about, we risk failure or criticism. When we admit we're struggling or ask for help, we face the fear of being judged or misunderstood. Yet, in every one of these moments, by stepping into vulnerability, we gain access to something far greater than the fear itself. It is in our willingness to be vulnerable that we grow. The act of saying, "I am scared, but I will try anyway," transforms fear into bravery. In the process, we discover resilience, the ability to rise again, no matter how many times we fall. Vulnerability is where strength begins because it demands honesty, authenticity, and an openness to the full range of human experience. Strength rooted in vulnerability also fosters connection. Imagine sharing a story of struggle with someone who's been through a similar experience. The walls we often build to protect ourselves dissolve, and in their place, a bridge emerges. This bridge is built on the courage to say, "Me too." It's built on the understanding that strength is not about never falling, but about standing back up, even if it means leaning on someone else in the process. Embracing vulnerability also unlocks creativity. When we let go of the fear of being judged, we allow ourselves to dream, to innovate, and to create without constraint. The artists, leaders, and innovators who have shaped the world didn't do so by hiding behind their fears. They did so by stepping into them. They risked ridicule and failure because they knew that their ideas, their truths, and their contributions were worth the vulnerability it required. To embrace vulnerability is not to say it's easy. It's to say it's worth it. Strength isn't found in avoiding life's uncertainties, it's found in facing them head on, knowing that while the outcome is uncertain, the courage to try makes all the difference. It is in these moments, raw and real, that we discover just how powerful we truly are. True connection and growth stem from moments of courage through vulnerability. Connection is at the heart of what it means to be human. We're wired for relationships, for community, and for belonging. But genuine connection doesn't come from superficial conversations or carefully curated appearances. It comes from a place of courage, a willingness to step into vulnerability and let others see us as we truly are. Think about the people you feel closest to in your life. What made those connections meaningful? Was it the moments when everything was perfect and smooth, or was it the times when you faced challenges together, shared a truth that felt risky, or showed a side of yourself that you usually keep hidden? True connection is born in those moments of honesty and authenticity, when we choose to lower our walls and reveal our humanity. But being vulnerable takes courage. It's not easy to admit that we don't have it all figured out, that we're struggling, or that we need help. It's terrifying to say, "This is what I'm feeling," especially when we fear judgment, rejection, or misunderstanding. Yet, it's precisely in these moments of courage that connection flourishes. When we show up with our authentic selves, we invite others to do the same. Vulnerability creates space for empathy and trust to grow. Growth, too, is deeply tied to vulnerability. To grow means to change, and change often requires stepping outside of our comfort zones. Whether it's pursuing a new opportunity, mending a fractured relationship, or learning a new skill, Growth demands that we face uncertainty, and uncertainty is uncomfortable, it's vulnerable. Imagine a child learning to walk for the first time. They wobble, they fall, and they try again. Each attempt is a vulnerable act, an acknowledgement of I'm not there yet, but I'm willing to risk falling to get there. This same principle applies to us at every stage of life. Growth requires us to embrace the possibility of failure, to ask questions even when we fear looking foolish, and to keep trying even when we stumble. Courage through vulnerability also allows us to challenge the narratives we carry about ourselves and others. Sometimes we hold on to stories that tell us we're not enough, that we need to be perfect to be loved or successful. When we have the courage to confront these narratives, to say, this story no longer serves me, and I'm ready to rewrite it, we create space for growth. It's important to remember that vulnerability isn't about oversharing or seeking validation. It's about being intentional with who we share our hearts with and choosing courage over comfort. It's about leaning into discomfort because we know that's where transformation happens. True connection and growth stem from moments when we dare to be real. When we let go of perfection and embrace the messy, imperfect beauty of being human, we don't just connect with others, we connect with ourselves. And in doing so, we unlock the limitless potential for love, learning, and belonging that vulnerability makes possible. Vulnerability has often been misunderstood as weakness, a sign of fragility, inadequacy, or a lack of control. But the truth is quite the opposite. Vulnerability is not about being weak, it's about being brave enough to show up as your authentic self, even when the outcome is uncertain. And when we embrace vulnerability, we open the door to life's most profound and fulfilling experiences: creativity, love, and belonging. Creativity, at its core, is a vulnerable act. To create something, a piece of art, a new idea, a solution to a problem, means putting a part of yourself out into the world. It means risking rejection, failure, or criticism. Think about every great invention, every breathtaking painting, or every groundbreaking novel. Behind each one was a person willing to say, here's something I've made, something I believe in, knowing full well that not everyone would understand or appreciate it. Creativity cannot thrive in an environment of fear or self-protection. It requires the freedom to take risks, to experiment, and to fail. Vulnerability is the fertile ground where innovation and imagination grow. The same is true for love. Love is inherently vulnerable because it requires us to open our hearts, to trust, and to let someone else in. Loving someone means saying, I see you for who you are, and I'm willing to share myself with you, flaws and all. It means risking heartbreak, rejection, and disappointment. Yet the alternative, shielding ourselves from vulnerability, leaves us disconnected and isolated. We cannot fully experience love without being willing to take that leap of faith. It is through vulnerability that we forge the deep, meaningful bonds that bring joy and purpose to our lives. Belonging, too, is rooted in vulnerability. True belonging isn't about fitting in or changing who we are to be accepted. It's about being seen and embraced for our authentic selves. To belong, we must first have the courage to show up as we are, even when we fear rejection. This takes immense strength because it requires us to let go of perfection and acknowledge our humanity. But the reward is profound, a sense of connection and acceptance that no amount of pretending can ever provide. It's important to recognize that vulnerability doesn't mean exposing ourselves indiscriminately or oversharing in ways that feel unsafe. It's about making intentional choices to be open and real with people who have earned our trust. It's about embracing the uncertainty and discomfort that come with living fully, knowing that these are the very experiences that make life rich and meaningful. When we see vulnerability not as a weakness, but as a source of strength, we unlock the power to create, to love, and to belong. We step into our truest selves and invite others to do the same. And in doing so, we don't just change our own lives, we create ripples of authenticity, courage, and connection that transform the world around us. Discomfort is an inevitable part of life. It shows up in moments of uncertainty, challenge, and change. Our natural instinct is often to avoid it, to seek comfort and control at all costs. But what if discomfort wasn't something to fear or escape? What if it was a pathway to self-discovery, growth, and authenticity? By leaning into discomfort, we begin to uncover who we truly are. The moments that challenge us most are often the moments that define us. When we face uncertainty or adversity, we're given an opportunity to confront our fears, question our beliefs, and find strength we didn't know we had. These moments are rarely easy. They require us to sit with the unease of not knowing what comes next and to embrace the vulnerability of being imperfect, unsure, and exposed. But in doing so, we learn what we're made of. Leaning into discomfort means showing up fully, even when it's hard. It's about staying present in situations that push us outside of our comfort zones, whether it's having a difficult conversation, trying something new, or facing a failure. It's in these moments that we begin to peel back the layers of who we think we're supposed to be and step closer to who we truly are. Consider the courage it takes to admit, I don't have all the answers, or I made a mistake. It feels uncomfortable because it challenges the armor we use to protect ourselves from judgment or rejection. But this honesty is also liberating. When we stop pretending to have it all together, we create space for authenticity. We allow ourselves to be seen, not as perfect, but as real. And it's in this realness that our truest selves begin to shine. Discomfort is also where growth happens. Imagine a seed breaking through the soil to reach the light. That process isn't easy. It's full of tension, struggle, and uncertainty. Yet it's necessary for the seed to grow into its fullest potential. The same is true for us. Growth requires us to face discomfort head-on, to take risks, and to embrace the possibility of failure. It's only by stepping into the unknown that we learn, evolve, and become stronger. Leaning into discomfort also deepens our connections with others. When we're willing to share our struggles, fears, and imperfections, we invite others to do the same. It's through this mutual vulnerability that trust and empathy are built. By saying, I'm willing to be real, even when it's hard, we create a space for authenticity in our relationships. Ultimately, discomfort is not a barrier, but a guide. It points us toward the areas where we need to grow, the truths we need to confront, and the opportunities we need to seize. By leaning into discomfort, we discover not only our capacity for resilience, but also our capacity for joy, connection, and self-acceptance. In these moments, we find our truest, most authentic selves, and that is where our power lies. Vulnerability is often misunderstood as something to hide or avoid, but it is, in fact, one of the greatest sources of strength, growth, and connection we have. It is the courage to show up, to be seen, and to embrace the discomfort of being human. Through vulnerability, we unlock our creativity, foster love and belonging, and connect more deeply with ourselves and others. Leaning into vulnerability allows us to step outside the confines of fear and perfectionism, embracing the messy, imperfect journey that life truly is. It's through these moments of courage that we discover who we are, what we value, and what we are capable of achieving. Vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It's a profound declaration of strength, resilience, and authenticity. So let us challenge the belief that we must always have it together or stay in control. Let us instead choose to live boldly, daring to take risks, share our truths, and embrace the uncertainties that come our way. Because when we lean into vulnerability, we don't just survive, we thrive. In choosing vulnerability, we choose to live fully, authentically, and courageously. And that, above all else, is the true power of being human.